Pizza! It's so good. So good.
So at what point during the ride should I eat the carrots? Before, after?
Carrots are a rough one to do.
Oh, hey.
Alisha, what the what?
Now you know I'm carb loading for my race tomorrow. Pizza, the liquid carbs, all the goodness.
That's not how this works.
No.
I want you to meet somebody.
Yeah.
Well, good thing we're going to talk about that on tonight's episode. Welcome to Learning with Alisha. I'm Alisha Zellner, and I'm the founder of Bike Ride for Black Lives. And if you happen to miss any of the Part 1 series, feel free to check them out on IGTV at Bike Ride for Black Lives. Today, we're going to be talking about nutrition and what to be eating before, during, and after any kind of physical activity. We have extra super special guest, Dr. Michelle Foster, with us today.
Hello.
Because she's the expert in all this. So I'm just going to just close this for now. And
I see you started, but yeah, that's not what we got to do. In the liquid carbs are yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that either. So let's clear this out and let's start with some 101.
Okay.
Some basics, right? Yes. So one-on-one, there's some categories and areas of places that you want to think about when we're thinking about our nutrition. We have two main categories. It's going to be our macros, which are our big. Yes. And our micros, which are our small. There you go.
Okay.
Very, very tiny.
Okay.
Yes. Within our macros, we then have a breakdown of 3 areas of deliciousness. You had pretty much one.
My carbs?
in your box right there,
Okay.
in your drink, and that's going to be carbohydrates. They're essential, but you want to make sure that you're balancing. They're essential for training. You want to make sure that you're balancing them with everything else. And then we have our proteins, and then we have our lipids. So let's talk about those first, and then we'll talk about why micros are important with them. So when you're thinking about proper nutrition, training for your race, you want to think about colorful food, a colorful plate.
Colors.
Yeah, what colors?
I had 2, yellow or maybe white and red.
Yeah, red you want to have, but not that red.
Oh, okay.
In that case, so you want to think about colorful. But let's start with the importance of just the macros first. So for training, you want to make sure that you do have your carbohydrates. You just want to make sure that you have your correct carbohydrates that you're fueling. The reason you need carbohydrates when you're training is because of something called glycogen stores specifically.
It's like sugar?
Yeah, so that's going to be your sugar units, and we store these within our muscle. And so our muscle is needed for exercise. Yeah, so that's what they're going to grub on. Your brain and your muscles are going to grub on that glucose. So it is important that you don't decide, hey, I'm going to go on a low-carb diet right before you're training, because then you're going to be weak and you're going to be sad. You have to have those carbohydrates. And if it's going to be a long bike ride or long running, you want to make sure that you're replenishing with some carbohydrates, because it's the fuel you're going to need to have those muscles keep going. And the reason you have to fuel it is because that glucose turns into, does anybody know the answer? Our biological battery.
ATP. Yeah, you know me. You know what ATP is. You know who's down with ATP.
That's right. I'm down with ATP.
And so's my body.
Yeah. ATP, that's it. And it comes from all of our macronutrients, but glucose does a really great job of supplying it, and supplying it very quickly. So we need the glycogen from our sugars, the correct ones, not pizza ones, to make sure that we have energy to fuel our run, to fuel our bike ride, our triathlon, whatever it may be.
What are some good quick carbs for people to think about when they are thinking about the good carbs versus the bad carbs?
So for me, and it depends if you're thinking about that night before the race training, usually that's going to be some sort of pasta or rice dish, not pizza.
Pasta, rice, not the pizza.
Yeah, pasta or a rice dish, something that's going to be a fairly simple, easy digestible. When you're running, you don't want your stomach gurgling from it. But if you're thinking about properly training up for the race, you want to make sure that you're building the correct muscle and that you're balancing it with the amount of fat that your body needs as well. And we'll talk about the fats that are going to be the essential ones that you want. And so in this case, you're going to want to make sure to eat the good carbohydrates, and this is where it's going to come from, that colorful aspect side. The produce carbohydrates are going to be really excellent for you, and to add, things are going to be slow releasing, so you don't want insulin peaks with your glucose peaks. And so if you eat something that's slow releasing with glucose, then your insulin is going to be slow releasing too, and that's going to overall be really great for your body. So produce aisle, some brown rice, some quinoa, whatever it may be, all that delicious heavy food, I guess.
Yeah.
It's going to be what's really great for you. So you want to go for that. You want to go for that colorful plate and the slow releasing glucoses. While you're training for the race, it's going to fuel your body the way that it needs to be fueled. It's going to keep you from having peaks of insulin. It's going to keep you satiated, basically. It's going to keep you from craving things that you don't want to be craving. And so this is the area of our carbohydrates. So essential for training, especially that night before, you want something a little bit more simple with not a high amount of fiber, because the last thing you want to do during a race is...
Oh, I've been there. I've been there. I've been there. It's terrible.
Yeah. So you don't want to load up too heavy on those fibers. Not that beans are really great for you, beans when you are in that training stage, but beans the night before, not going to be such a great meal. You know what's going to irritate your stomach when you've got to really be performing hard. And in line with that, and talking about carbs, your body, when you're riding really fast, or you're running really fast, it's a fight or flight response. So your gut's going to basically slow down so that it can fuel the rest of your body with the glucose it needs. So when you're thinking about refueling, as you have right here, these are some nice options. I really can't eat hardcore, but if I'm running several miles, 13 to 18, whatever it may be.
Like as you said that, several miles,
13 to 18, I'm just going to throw that out.
I'm like half a mile, maybe? Maybe 3?
13 to 18.
Okay.
Yeah, I got some friends I run behind when I'm running, right? I'm just away from me, guys. But these are some really great options. Usually these, the end right here, margarita. I haven't tasted it, but I'm going to buy some of these right here. Make me feel like I'm doing something tropical and fantastic. But these are really easy to suck on and slowly get the energy out of. You can see here it's really tiny, that this is 3 times the sodium. You're going to be losing some of those minerals, the salts, and you want to be able to replenish those as you're sweating them out to put them back in your body. They're going to help your cells do what they have to do. And there's also these shot things. You can take it in as slow as you want, very simple, for me at least, on my stomach and on my gut to take in things staggered and very slowly as I'm running. I don't bike long distances, but I assume it works the same with biking. So to keep that, the sugars, to keep yourself balanced with the proper hydration molecules that are going to be found in some of those packages. And then afterwards, I mean, if you want that pizza afterwards, that's where I celebrate. So I don't know that I'm necessarily watching what I'm eating after a race, because I want to make sure that I'm at least eating, and you want some good stuff to go in, but usually that's not the case for me. So.
Okay, all right, well, doctor says.
So you can reward yourself after that race. You can keep it healthy, but you don't have to shame yourself. Everything in moderation is fantastic. So that's our carbohydrates. Let's move on to our proteins. Proteins are going to be necessary for muscle building, and if you want to do a long bike ride, or if you want to do a long run, especially if you're a long distance runner, you tend to atrophy some of those muscles, and so you want to make sure that you are fueling properly with amino acids, which are found in proteins. Those are going to be our little building blocks that are going to make everything that we need, from hormones to signaling molecules to the cells that we have.
It's like the Lego movie, like
basically it is in our body. Little miracles,
like little
that
Lego,
happen.
like they're
Yeah,
just like building
it up.
body.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
each and our
So they
little
have
cells, just
characters.
connecting them.
Okay, I'm gonna name them now.
Yeah, they do, like the messenger RNA and all that wonderful stuff. It is in there, and it is like Legos, attaching it little piece by little piece and building you. As you are working out, you could be breaking it down. If you're overworking your body, you could actually be eating your proteins.
Oh.
Yep, so you want to make sure that when you're training, that you are training with you're eating some really great lean proteins. A steak every once in a while is okay, but you don't want to have anything that's too fatty. You don't want to be taking in saturated fats, which is what you're going to find from animal food. So animal food, number one, is going to be a great resource of also micronutrients. It's going to be highly bioavailable for our body, but you don't want to be taking in anything that's going to be too fatty. You want that lean muscle so that you then take in those amino acids and build that lean muscle yourself. So overall, when they say you are what you eat, especially because this is what I study, and we look at cells and tissues from animals, they are specifically what they eat. If you eat a high saturated fat diet, for example, then you're going to be a high saturated fat person. If you eat a lot of sugar, you're going to have a lot of sugar in your blood, and so it's exactly what you eat is what you're making your cells out of. So
when my niece eats Sour Patch Kids at 4,
she's a Sour Patch.
Okay.
She's going to be a grown Sour Patch.
Okay, I see how this works. Shannon, stop this.
Yeah, in moderation.
Oh, moderation.
Yeah, at movie theaters every once in a while. That'll work. So, yes, lean meats are going to be great for your training. Protein is also, much like fiber, is going to be highly satiating. So if you have it with some brown rice, a lean meat, it's going to take you to that next meal. Maybe some snacks in between, but it's not going to have you craving some of those salty and sugary foods that you might otherwise want to crave. So lean meats. And that's what I choose is chicken or fish or a steak, a lean steak. And every once in a while I might choose to have a not lean steak. That's buttery and delicious, but in moderation, right? All right, so that's our carbohydrates, and that is our proteins, which leaves us with our fats. There we go. And so fats get a bad reputation. Fats are very important for our body. You just have to take in the right fats in this case. And that's going to be our omegas. You can find these in some vegetables, but the best place you can get it is going to be in our fishes. So salmon is a really great, so that smell that you smell from salmon, that's going to be where those good omegas are. So if you, sometimes you can smell it on, that was flax seeds, I can smell that omega on. So you can sort of smell that like fishy sort of, yeah, you're like,
I know, my seeds?
flax seeds. No, I'm saying seeds. Seeds.
Seeds.
Yes.
Eat the seeds.
They have that nice.
Eat the seeds.
Yes, very good for you. Have the omegas for you. Have the omegas for you. And so, what's important about these omegas is that they're going to be unsaturated. So, saturated fat is delicious. I'll put it out there. It's going to be delicious fat. That's going to be your butter. So, anything that sits at room temperature as a solid is a saturated fat.
Avocados?
They have omegas in them, so that's a little bit different.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but let's say bacon fat, when it's sitting at room temperature, is going to solidify. So those are going to be our saturated fats. Those that don't turn to solids when they're sitting at room temperature are going to be our unsaturated. So olive oil at room temperature is going to still be in a liquid form. And if you have olive oil that tends to clump, that means you have something else in there that should not be in that olive oil. Oh. Yes, it's cheap olive oil in that case. And so what is important about this is that as it's clumping, it's building a structure. If it's saturated, it's building a structure that's almost like bricks, versus if it's unsaturated, it sort of flows like this. And so when you're thinking about your cells, again, you are what you eat, and you're thinking about your cells, you have cells that could be bricks, and you have signaling molecules that come through, and if they're bricks, they're not doing their job because they're not letting what needs to come through that cell. Versus if it's polyunsaturated, or monounsaturated, unsaturated period, things can flow and the cell can move and it can do its job like it should. Saturated, your cells are very stiff and they're very rigid. And so they can't signal the way that they should be signaling. So you want to make sure that you're taking in the correct fats, and that is your unsaturated fats. So your cells can let go and just flow. Let it in.
Man, we're dropping rhymes tonight. Dropping rhymes. You want to start a rap?
I think we should. I got my 90s gear on.
Yeah, she was. Yeah. Oh, dang. Okay. All right.
I'm ready.
Oh, okay. All right. Yes.
And so there we go. That is our fats. And that you want those unsaturated. You want your cells to flow well. You want your lean meats that are going to give you the proteins that you need. Also your building blocks that are going to go in those cells that are going to flow. And then to fuel your muscles, you want to have that glycogen as well, because it's going to take you through those bouts that are going to help you produce that ATP.
Fantastic.
Those are macros.
Oh, I forgot about those tiny.
Now we got the little tiny guys. And I'm not going to go into the detail, but we have two categories under our micros. And that is going to be our fat soluble and our water soluble. And just as they suggest, that's how they enter the body. Either with water side, or they're going to come in with the fat that you eat as well. Hopefully the unsaturated fat. Now the importance of these things, of all of our vitamins, is that no matter what you're eating as far as the macronutrients, if you don't have the proper micro ones, then you can't undergo your cellular metabolism. So if you think of each little cell, it's got little pathways that it has to do to take your food, take it apart into little pieces, and then shift it to your mitochondria where it produces ATP. But if you don't have your micronutrients, they're sort of the checkpoints to the enzymes and the cofactors and the coenzymes that allow that thing to tick. So have you heard of the TCA cycle? Do you remember that? Pull from your biology.
I know. My human anatomy and physiology in school. Yeah. No, I'll be honest. No.
And, well, it's a cycle.
Okay.
And so with the cycle, it has elements that are part of our vitamins. So we'll take in the vitamins and we'll convert them to something else. And there's steps where if you don't have those vitamins, then it slows down. This slows down, this slows down, and essentially your cells can't do what your cells need to do. So it's not enough to eat white rice. You need the glucose, but you can't process the glucose without the micronutrients that provide the vitamins that then become the enzymes or the coenzymes or the steps that you need to have your cellular metabolism work. So this goes back to when you're looking at your plate, that plate needs to be colorful.
Not my pizza.
And not your pizza.
I just still.
Your pizza's going to give you carbs, but
No.
it's going to sit there and it's not going to do a whole lot of anything except for the red sauce.
Okay, so just. I was trying.
And I'm not sure what the red sauce has in it, so.
So what kind of good micronutrients are we talking about?
So these are all of our vitamins, B vitamins, C, D, A, K.
That basically come along in the foods that we eat.
Yeah, so the colorful foods that are in the vegetable section, these are going to hold our micronutrients, and it depends on what your folate's going to be found in foliage green colored vegetables. You've got your beta carotenes that are going to be found in your orange squashes, carrots. So that's why it's important to eat the rainbow, because some of these are associated with different color
And not the
fruits or
Skittles.
vegetables.
Not Skittles.
No, Skittles don't count.
Not the Skittles.
That's orange number 5.
Oh! And I'm like, this rainbow, not this one? Okay.
No, not on a daily. That's for race day.
Oh, okay. All right, roger that again.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
apparently you're telling me that I just need to change all my eating habits. It's fine.
Yeah, it takes some work, and you might be grumpy eating it. Meal prepping is great, it's what I do, or else I go for kid scraps. Like, look what they left me, some scraps, and I shall eat them.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I thank you so much for coming and chatting with us today. If there was any one takeaway, and I do this to Jimmy all the time and he hates it, if there's any one big takeaway for people to remember, what would you let them know?
Colorful plates.
Colorful plates, folks. Colorful plates.
Make it the rainbow. Diversity.
Love it. Diversity in your food.
food.
You all have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.